watch them every Monday night. We do a little show together to try and keep everybody informed on things and try and keep the information flowing out there. And you've been pretty busy this morning. How many TV shots did you do?
A couple. Of course, it's the most humid day of the year, too. I walked out of the camper this morning. I thought, oh, this is not fat guy friendly weather.
So for people that don't know, you experienced the same kind of issues that a lot of people on the island have. Your house was destroyed in the storm.
Yeah, you know, one of the first people that I saw when I walked out the door was Joe, who you had on earlier, and so I was listening to some of the things he was saying, and I mean, he was spot on. Exactly what he said is exactly what you saw. And, you know, then after that, it was Chief Ron Martin, who we talked to, see him come over the bridge. And you know, as he said, to call it catastrophic would have been a gross understatement, because he couldn't even get past the 7-Eleven at Palermo Circle. So it was, we lost everything. You know, we were fortunate. The house made it. The windows held up, because after Irma, obviously we had to do windows and roofs and stuff like that. So that actually held up, but everything inside, you know, we're on one of the highest streets on the island. So we only took 5 feet of water in the house, but it made everything, turned it into a washing machine, essentially. Everything inside, you know, we did what everybody else did and brought all the stuff into the garage to try to protect it from blowing and being missiles flying into other people's houses. And it just took everything and flipped it upside down and put it on my wife's Jeep. And, you know, most people that know us, she probably loved that Jeep more than she loved me, but so she was sad to see that she lost that. But yeah, you know, obviously lost our cart business, and you know, I didn't have a job, and now Megan doesn't have a job. So we're all
what? I didn't know about that.
Yeah, but, So they decided to go a different direction and bring everything in the house. So.
Wow. So backing up a little bit, the cart business, he owned Island Carts FMB with Tim Ryan, and it had just launched like a year or less earlier.
Yeah, we started in December of 2022 or 21, just before the new year. And we started with 4 carts. By June, we were up to 15 carts.
Right.
And we were just about to get some more, and obviously the storm came in, but you know, so we had all of our carts over at the Buttonwood location, and that's elevated. We got about 18 inches of water over there, which was just enough to cover the motors and seize everything up. So luckily the insurance covered, I'd say 99% of it. So we were fortunate in that aspect, but you know, we were on our way. We were doing really well, and we were poised. We had a lot of reservations already booked for this season, but obviously you had to cancel those and do all that. But we've received a lot of support from the people that did use the service in the past, and they're looking forward to us coming back and want to be first in line. So it's nice. We still get calls to this day from people just checking in on us, see how we're doing.
So for anyone that doesn't know, I'd like to recap a little bit. The 820 Buttonwood location, where all the donations started and all the people really started to come together when they couldn't get over the bridge. That's where the carts were located. And the first time I went in there, I remember, it was muck and mud everywhere. And within 24 hours, you guys had it cleaned out and ready to accept donations. And to this day, people are still donating stuff for people on the beach.
Yeah. You know, Tim and I had talked on the phone. He was not here, but like, what can we do with the space to help out the community? And he was on board with, let's get it cleaned out. So he was down here right away. And like you said, we got it cleaned out and started putting the word out through Beach Talk Radio and anybody that would listen that, you know, we're here to help. And the semis started rolling in from all over the country, and we realized that we had a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. I mean, we'd run into each other there at 4:00 in the morning, sometimes 4:30, just, you know, getting stuff ready and trying to get ready for the day. And as you said, to this day, it's still being used. It's much more organized now than it was. It's actual 501c3 FMB strong now. So, you know, Alex King's foundation's involved in it. So it's going down the right path. It's helping a lot of people, and it kind of warms your heart that out of bad, something good came.
Back in the early days, I remember Kim and our daughter Jillian came over because we wanted to help. And one of the first things we did was we walked down, I don't remember the name of the street was, we were passing water cases out from somebody's house, and you couldn't get down the road. There was houses in the middle of the street. So we were actually, this felt like we were being creepers, but you had to walk around somebody's backyard and then in the front yard and in the backyard, and you had to watch out for the glass and the nails to get cases of water that we were bringing for somebody. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it was back in those first days on every single street.
It was. Yeah. I mean, we would take cases of water. A company from Indiana brought down a truckload of plywood, which we dispersed over some of the 7-Eleven parking lots, and a lot of food. And, that helped people get their houses at least boarded up and secured from people trying to get in there. So there was a lot of things, like you said, there wasn't one street. And I'd say in the first 2 weeks, I at least walked down every single street once. And, it took several weeks to clear a lot of these streets out. You're climbing over people's homes, their cars, their belongings. It was just, you thought it's never going to be the same. There's no hope, And, the first day, the first sign of hope that I had after passing the 2 people that didn't make it through the storm, we were able, speaking of Tim, he actually called me and said, one of my tenants I can't reach. He said, can you get down there and check on him? So that's when I started down the island to try to get down. He's about the 5,500 block of Estero on Estero. So I made my way down there, and I happened to get there about the same time that 2 other gentlemen got there, and the house that he was in obviously came off its pilings, and it was in a pile up against the house behind it, on the street behind it. And we could hear him, but we couldn't see him. So digging him out, we finally got him out, and he had been pinned in there. So, he ended up making it. He survived. He'd been on the island for 20 or 30 years. I can't remember exactly how long, but he was able to, he had no shoes on. His legs were all skunned up. Obviously he was dehydrated. But we were able to get him out of the building, climbing over everything he had to climb over to get him out. And we got him out to the beach where he was able to get picked up. But, he said he felt the house start shifting, and he knew that, water started coming in, the house started shifting. He said the only thing I could think of was grabbing my mattress. So he climbed onto his mattress and clung onto his mattress and floated it with the building into the house behind it. And then when it collapsed, it collapsed on him, but he was on the mattress, and that actually saved him. He was pinned in, but he was able to get out. So that was my first sign of hope. Like, okay, we're going to find some people. We're not everyone's going to be, drowned or missing.
When you're first driving around in the pickup, and you're seeing everything that you're seeing for wherever you could get, you couldn't really get to too many places, or however you got around that first time.
Well, the morning, right after the storm, I thought I'm going to go out and grab a bike and start going up and down the island. And obviously where we were at, the water was about 16 feet, because where we were standing was 17 feet. So the water was about a foot from coming up to touching my feet. So I went out, like, I'm going to grab the bike and go try to help whoever I can help. Well, there was such muck, it was probably a foot of muck that you could barely walk even on flat ground. It was like very slimy and slippery. And so there was no way you were going to bike. So I just started out walking, and it took me 45 minutes to get to Estero Boulevard. And it took me what normally would take less than an hour to walk from here to my house. It took me 6 hours. So to see what it was, if you didn't get a chance to see what it was before they were able to come in and actually plow a path, I think it took 4 days to be able to get to the south end of the island to start rescuing people out of the condos down there who had lost their steps. They were trapped. They couldn't get out. Some of these condo people, and, for the fire department to get down there with their ladders, they had, I think it was 3 or 4 crews. The first crew would come in, and they were taking just handheld debris and throwing it to the side. And then the next crew would come in, and they had skid loaders where they were moving dishwashers, refrigerators, things like that. And then the next crew came in with a bigger loader that was moving cars and bigger things that the skid loader couldn't lift. And then they had the plow kind of thing come through, and they eventually were able to get to the south end of the island. But, Jim Adderholt, our vice mayor, was down on the south end of the island, and he and I were in communication as much as we could. As the cell phone coverage was slim to none. You had to be very lucky to find a place to get communication. So your batteries would die very fast because it's searching for signal all the time. And he keep touching base with me, because saying, when are we going to get help down here? We're 3 days in and we still don't have any help down here. And it was hard to say, we're coming, because you couldn't come from the south end,
right?
Because the bridge was shifted and it was closed. So you had one access point to get there, but eventually we got there, and, we started moving in the right direction after that.
When you look back now at, you still see big chunks of houses or buildings on the side of the road. Do you think that a lot of progress has been made, or more progress than you thought was? I mean, it's always easy to say in the first 2 months, I can't believe there's so much stuff here, but 6 months later, you realize what a massive project it was to move buildings and houses and sand and find people at the beginning.
Yeah, I remember one of the meetings we had up at the county building with one of the first meetings I was in, that with FEMA was there, and they were talking about the amount of debris, and they estimated in Lee County that there was about 10 million cubic yards of debris that they estimated from the storm in just Lee County. And of that, 2.5 million cubic yards were just on our little 7 Mile Island. So that kind of gives you a little idea of the devastation. So, I have to really give it to Governor DeSantis and Kevin Guthrie and FDEM. Those guys came down, they stepped up, they provided the resources, they assumed our debris removal contract, picked up for the right of way. They've been handling all of the debris, and I don't know where we'd be if that wouldn't have happened. Just to see what it was and to see what Bay Oaks looked like even 2 months ago to what it looks like now, it looks like nothing ever happened for the most part, other than the fields and everything are gone. But that was the biggest challenge, and I think we still have that challenge. The deadline's coming up. Don't forget, for Ian debris cleanup, you got to register for that by tomorrow. If you're in the queue, they'll still come out. They'll come out and take care of your property. They're not going to go away from us. They've assured us that they're here to help us as long as they have to, because the debris is the biggest thing. Everyone I've talked to in any storm from Bay County and on down, anyone that's been involved in it, they've all said the same thing, that the debris is the hardest part. And I would have never expected what I saw the day after the morning of the storm, when I came out the day after, the amount of debris that was here. I would have never in a million years thought we'd been this far after 6 months. But, every day you see a new house come down, another house that needs to come down, and there's still a lot of work to be done.
When you see the people, or saw the people back then, and then see some of the people now, do you think mentally they're okay?
I think it was difficult because over the last 6 months, you've seen people, they go through I always say they go through different degrees of grieving, and not everybody is aligned. Some people, you get angry, like, why me? And then you feel pity, and then you feel like, okay, I got to get ready to go. And it was difficult to see and talk to so many people, whether you're a business owner, you were a snowbird, you were a resident, or just a vacationer. It was difficult to see and hear the stories about people that, just grieve completely different. I've always been one that once I can't control a situation, if my house was gone, I have to move forward. I can't dwell on the past, but not everybody's like that. A lot of people, Megan and I, happy birthday, by the way, honey. Everything that we've accumulated, her late father, my late father, all of the stuff we've accumulated over our life fit in 4 tiny little, clear bins. And you think that, God, how are we ever going to be the same? And so it was difficult to see that. Megan obviously handled it a little bit different than I did. I was the first one to see our house and realize that, again, there's nothing left to save. I'm just going to move on. And so when I was able to finally get Megan down there, she needed a little bit more time to, go through things, try to save some things, and then realize eventually that there was really not a lot to save. So it was hard. Everybody went through the same grieving. I always, I say it probably more than I should, but the storm really didn't care what your economic level was. It didn't care if you were a millionaire or, like me, a hundredaire. It didn't matter. It didn't matter how big your checkbook was. It took everything away from you.
Yeah.
And, everybody's grieving a little bit different, but I think everybody is kind of past the grieving part. Some people that I talked to last week who haven't been down here, this is the first time being down here to see the storm. They knew that their house was destroyed, but they hadn't been down here yet to see it. They've been doing everything away. They're still shocked. They're like, I can't believe it looks like this. You should have seen it 6 months ago. Right. But they, they're so now they're going through the grieving thing that everybody else does. But I think for the most part, people have gotten over okay, there's, still dealing with insurance and probably some FEMA stuff, but now it's time to put the gloves and the boots on and get to work.
Yeah. When every once in a while at Wahoo Willie's, somebody will come down for the first time and they'll say, this is like a week or two ago, I just came over for the first time and I'm so devastated. And all I can do is have a blank face. Like, okay, well, you don't want to know what it was like 5 months or 6 months ago, because no matter how many pictures you can post or anything that you can send, it's not the same thing as when you're standing in it and you're just looking around and saying, it looked like an atomic bomb just fell on this island.
Yeah. I remember one of the first people that I took, around the island to show around was Congressman Donalds, and they had obviously flown over. He and Jesse Burton from Bonita Springs, they had obviously flown over and seen it from overhead, and I had actually never seen it overhead until this weekend when I flew back from Iowa. Was the first time I got to see the island from up above, and had not knowing any better, when you see it from up above, it really doesn't look that bad. I mean, you see it, there's obviously houses gone, but you can't see the degree of devastation that you see when you get to the ground level. So when they had obviously seen it, they thought, and they were honest. They're like, we didn't, we thought it wasn't that bad. And then when we started going down the road, and you could see what we've all seen now, that when you look through, there may be a roof and 4 posts holding it up, but there's nothing at ground level. I mean, it's like a flamethrower went through and took everything out. Your studs, everything inside it is gone. And you don't get that perspective unless you're actually on the ground walking or biking or driving through, and they had never saw that. So when they saw it, they were like, wow. We stopped on Hibiscus, which is probably
Okay.
one of the biggest hit street, all those concrete homes, the first 7, 8 of them are completely gone and there's no blocks to be found. And explaining that to them, that's when I think it really sunk in that, wow, this was really devastating. But from the air, it doesn't.
Yeah.
All you see, just like Beach Baptist from the air, you see the Beach Baptist church roof and you're like, it looks like it's still intact. And then you
Right.
get down and then you see what you
Yeah.
really see. And then you're like,
Yeah, Hibiscus is the example of the people on that road think a tornado came through that street, because the first like 5 or 6 houses on both sides of the road are completely gone.
well, they're one of the only streets that was completely exposed to the water,
Okay.
because there used to be Surf and Us across the street from
Okay.
there. And obviously that Surf and Us came down. So it was just a bare lot. So I don't remember if you remember a few years back, I don't know, it was 2009 or 10, somewhere in there. Or maybe it was later. No, I'm sorry, like 2016 or 17, something like that. But they had that little mini tsunami that came through that hit
Yeah.
Naples.
Yeah.
Well, Heidi and Bruiser were managing the Surf and Us at that time.
Okay.
And they had a little octagon bar in that spot where the Surf and Us used to be. And they called me up and they're like, Dan, can you come and give us a hand? The bar is down the street. So that it's just like where the island curves right there, it seems like that gets the serve. So they had residents that were staying in the lower units, and they said they heard this noise and they opened up the window and they just saw this 4 foot of water come, and it hit the side of the building.
Yeah.
And then it pushed everything down the street, right down Hibiscus. So that was why the building was still there. So they probably had, I'd say, a foot to 18 inches of what was like concrete. Sand had gotten packed down from the water flowing over it. That it took us, I don't know how many days to chip up that sand with hose and stuff just to break it up. So now that that's gone, I guess I wasn't really shocked to see the devastation that went down, because that water had nothing to break its path. And it came through, and Jackie's house was one of the first ones on the corner there, and it took that gone. And I thought, because she sent me a message, she's like, I know you're walking down the street, can you take a picture of my house? And I said, I'd love to, but it's not here. And she thought I was kidding. And no, it's gone.
That's the other thing that was so bizarre. Like when you want to interview somebody about what they're going through, and the first question you have to ask them is, what does it feel like to come home to your house and it's not there? Like, did you ever think that somebody would ever ask you that question? Like, you feel like you're prying in somebody's life. Like, What do you mean? How do I feel? That's the dumbest question in the world. My house is gone.
Well, yeah. I think the second dumbest question came after that. Is like, how are you doing? That seemed to be.
I didn't ask that one. That was Kim.
Well, how do you think I'm doing?
Just peachy.
Yeah.
And the power of that water is incredible. Like
it was like, maybe someday I'll share some of the videos that I took that day, but to see the structures that it moved, and just moving 30, 40 foot boats, we were in line with the mooring field. I've told the story that one of the boats busted off, and we heard the diesel engine, and very experienced captains on the boat. We ended up finding out who they were later after the storm, but they were very experienced captains. And when they were turning around, I told them if it were me captaining that boat, I would have been full speed ahead and put that thing right up on the deck of where we were staying,
right,
and got off that boat and got into the house, because we could see they had their TV on, so we knew that they were in there. So once they broke free and they were able to get back to Hurricane Pass, and I think they ended up 300 yards or something into the mangroves once the water settled.
Jeez.
And they had to get lifted out of there. But the boat behind it was probably a 40-foot sailboat, and I mean the mast was just, because the waves came up the back bay at first, and they were 6 to 8 foot waves, which is tremendous in the back bay. You normally get a 1 foot chop or something, but they were coming up from the south. They're coming up the back bay towards the Matanzas Pass Bridge, and what was weird is the wind was blowing towards the Matanzas Pass Bridge, but the bow of the boats were facing towards the Matanzas Pass Bridge. So you would think that the bow of the boats would be facing into the wind, but because the current was coming in underneath, it was turning. It was just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So their stern is taking all this water, and then the current would light up, and then the boat would shift around, and then they'd be taking it off the bow. So they were doing this for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And the sailboat that was behind this boat that broke free just kept flipping from, starboard to port, just kept going back and forth. And eventually, we could see the TV on, and they, making eye contact with these people. And then all of a sudden the big wave came and the boat was gone. Never saw them again.
Wow.
So, we saw 2 or 3 of those happen. And
Where were you seeing this? At the house?
At the house.
Yeah. Did you stay on the island?
We did.
You did.
Yeah.
And would you stay again?
I get asked that question a lot. If I could be in a house, this house was obviously built at current FEMA standards.
Okay.
So I didn't feel, when the water came 1 foot touching my feet on the second level, my wife kind of started panicking and started taking the animals to the third story, and along with all of the stuff that we had brought with us to the third story. And I literally pulled the cooler over to the stairs and of course grabbed a beer and sat there, and I sat and watched that water, because it hadn't come in the front door yet, which was about, I'd say 8 to 10 feet above the ground. It hadn't come in, but it was starting to come up the window, and it started leaking in. And, I thought, well, I'm going to,
I remember you showing that video of the window,
yeah, so
the water.
I'm going to put a towel down.
Yeah, right.
Right.
There's a few sandbags.
So
the sandbag will stop the storm.
So it came in, it started coming in, and then it started coming up the stairs. And that's when I pulled the cooler over and sat in that cooler and cracked a beer. And I told my wife, I said, if this touches my feet, this island is in even worse trouble than it is now.
Yeah.
And it never did. It came in, and it seemed like it never stopped coming, and it never stopped coming. And I'm getting messages from people or seeing on Facebook, because we still had coverage at the time. So that's the only way we communicate with the outside world. And I actually saw on Beach Talk Radio, a lady said that her dad was staying on the same street, and that he was cutting a hole in the ceiling to get it into the ceiling. And
Crazy.
He was 2 doors down from me, and there was nothing I could do. I mean, there was no way I could go outside. And that was a gut wrenching punch. You're 2 houses away. Look, the first person after Joe, the first person I saw was, or I didn't see him first person. A day or two after, I ran into the gentleman, and he's like, "Yeah, my daughter was a little overreacting.
Yeah, right.
I was fine." And he was, so he played it off. He made it. It was fine. But as the water was coming in, and it was coming up so slowly, I thought it was never going to end. And then all of a sudden, within an hour, it was back over the seawall. It just
wow,
it was gone.
Yeah. But when you're watching the water rise, again, this could be a dumb question, and I apologize if it seems like prying, but when you're watching the water rise and you have no idea where it's going to stop, are you thinking I need a life jacket, or are you thinking, how do I get out? Because you can't really, what are you going to do? Swim?
Well, I mean, luckily where we were at, we had a third story that we could go to. So I felt safe, but you could hear things like you could hear the tiles coming off the roof, and they're shattering. At first, you don't know what it is, but you're hearing these tiles shatter on the decking on the second level, and you're like, "What's that?" And you're not sure. And then you can hear, my truck was in the garage below, and I could hear my truck sloshing around and banging around. I thought, what if one of these pillars go? This house could come down.
Yeah.
That's when I started thinking, boy, I hope whoever built this really knew what they were doing. And fortunately, we were fine. But if we would have had to evacuate to the third floor, Florida would have been underwater. It is kind of the way I looked at it. It wouldn't matter where you were at. As John was saying, they're 30 miles inland, and they got 3.5 feet of water. So, that storm had a lot of power to it. I think, we had a lot of, in the conference I was talking at up there, one of the questions I was asked was, what could you think anything could have been done different to maybe make people aware? Because I think we all agree that there was a lot of false sense of hope after Irma, because Irma was supposed to be what Ian was, and we actually got nothing. The water went out, but never came back in.
Yeah.
And we were prepared. We stayed on the island for that one as well, but we were in a similar type house, and we had tied kayaks to the pillars. We did everything we could do, because we were expecting the worst. We had generators on the third level. We had gas we had everything we could, as prepared as we could be for this storm. And
nothing happened.
And nothing happened. And so I think that gave people a lot of false sense of security. And I remember during Irma, the reason that I stayed during that is Megan had the car packed up. We were going to leave. We were going to head up to her mom's place in the Villages and just get away, because we had never been through it. And they're talking 15-foot storm surge. That's a lot of water. And Bruiser actually called me up, and he says, can you come help me put these storm shutters up on this guy's house on Hibiscus? Okay. And
a house that's no longer there.
It was right on the corner of Hibiscus. And so I said, sure. So I ran down there. Megan already had the car loaded. The animals were packed up. And we get there, and I don't remember exactly how old he was. He was in his 80s, and he had an oxygen tank, and he was inside the house. And we're like, well, where are you going? Where can we take you? He's like, I'm not leaving. I've been through every storm here for the last 40 years. I'm not leaving. I'm like, well, I can't put these storm shutters up and entomb this guy in this house. And he's like, just do it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So Bruiser and I put up all these storm shutters, and we literally entombed this guy in his house. And on the drive back, I just kept thinking, I can't leave this guy knowing if we get a 15-foot storm surge, he's stuck in his house. So I went home and told Megan the story, and I said, I can't leave. And she goes, okay. So she started unpacking the car, and we ended up staying. And, you know, right after the storm, fortunately, we didn't get anything. We were able to go back and get him out right away. But that Irma was the reason that I decided to get into politics, believe it or not.
No kidding.
That
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
Yeah. So the day after the storm, you know, we went and let him out, and then we, you know, we're obviously getting calls to check on people's houses and that. So we started down the road, and we were right here actually turning left to go down to check on a house for a couple down on the north end of Estero. And here's a fire truck, and in the back of the fire truck is the then mayor standing in the back waving at people like it's a Macy's Day Parade. And it enraged me so much that I thought it could be so many other things you could be doing than standing in the back of the truck and waving like it's a parade. And it just made me mad, and then I had to get involved, and so that's what actually led me into politics.
I didn't know that.
But
so you become the mayor after the last election. Things change. You become the mayor, and did you ever think like some of the first calls you're going to get are, my neighbor's car is in my pool, what do I do? Or you know, there's a house in my backyard, how do I get rid of it? I mean, the most bizarre kinds of calls you're ever going to imagine.
Well, I think that's how you can tell how the recovery is going, quite honestly, because the first calls were obviously, you know, I can't get a hold of this person. Can you help me try to locate these people? And, you know, you and Kim were instrumental in helping me at the beginning and getting as much word out as we could, as fast as we could. Whenever we got the information, we always didn't get information as fast as I would have liked it. But, you know, you're dealing with the most dangerous storm or devastating storm that ever hit Florida. So then it kind of progresses into, well, when is the debris, you know, fast forward a couple more emotions, and you get to when is the debris going to get gone? And now we're kind of at the point where people are starting to get back in their houses. And I got a complaint the other day. Why is my neighbor's garbage can still sitting out? Well, ma'am, they don't have a house. So, you know, or the signs, people are, you know, now upset about signs. So it's no longer, you know, I've got a car in my pool. Now we're kind of moving into the things, the noise ordinance. People are complaining about the noise now. So we're kind of getting back into, I don't want to say normal, but some of the things that were a daily occurrence that you had to address, which I never thought I would say. These are softballs.
Yes. I'll go get the garbage can for you, man.
Yeah, that's easy. I can handle that.
Was that really a Category 4 hurricane?
You know, I don't. They say the miles per hour. When we were up in Tallahassee, Director Guthrie was addressing the legislation and talking about it. And his personal belief is that it will get changed to a Category 5. He said that in a testimony.
Does that change funding?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. But if that wasn't a Category 5, I don't want to ever see it.
Right. What is it? If this is not the result of a Category 5 hurricane, I mean, what could be?
You know, maybe it's something that has to get looked into. You know, sure, maybe the winds were 2 miles per hour or whatever it was below what would rank it as a Category 5, but that water,
there should be some formula where the water gets put into the calculation of the storm surge, gets put into the calculation of the wind to make it. I mean, are you upset with the way the insurance companies are dealing with folks on the island? They just seem to be getting a screw job.
I don't think I've ever said the words insurance and happy in the same sentence in my entire life. So to say that I'm upset, of course I'm upset. A lot of people are getting, you know, jerked around over things after they've already lost everything. They're now being told that I was just talking to a gentleman here who he lives off the island. It's a much probably smaller scale insurance wise than what we're dealing here, but it's again, all relative. This storm didn't care how much money you had. And he was telling me how his insurance was $800 a year. And he got a message from an insurance company that they're dropping him. He never even made a claim, but they're dropping him
because they don't want to be around here.
So he said, so he tried looking at, and they referred him to other ones. And he said his insurance company told him that because he's now located in Lee County, it's a high risk area, and it went from $800 a year to $2,400 a year.
Crazy.
So you know, the dollar amount isn't the important part; it's the scalability or the factor of the dollar amount. I heard from a condo association on the south end that I think they said their insurance was $67,000 a year, and their new quote was $740,000 or $760,000 a year.
How do you pay that without? I mean, it's just absurd.
It's robbery. I mean, it's robbery. And at the end of the day, some of these people are paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year in insurance, and they can only get back $250,000. So unfortunately, I think what it's done is it's enticed people to self-insure. Why, if you make it 5 years without a storm, you're breaking even and not having to deal with the headache.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the right message to get
No.
out.
Now you did like I don't know how many TV shots you did today. It's the Weather Channel and Fox was here and Wink was here and all the TV stations are here today because it's the 6-month.
Mhm.
I don't like to use the word anniversary. It's the 6-month mark of the storm. Do people pay enough attention to what's going on here on a regular basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think at least a couple times a week, people reach out to ask comments and how things are going, and we got a thing on Friday now we call Fact or Fiction. It is a coconut telegraph, so sometimes things get blown out of proportion, and people will ask questions about things. The street signs, for instance, they thought the town hated them, and we wanted to tear them down. So you have to straighten those things out. I mean, that's almost a full-time job in itself, trying to correct the errors that are getting spread out there. Some have legitimate legs behind it, but I would say most of them don't.
Okay. So you think that we're getting enough national attention to keep the spotlight on here to help with the rebuild?
Well, I mean, I think that the national attention has kind of died down with, the devastating storm that just hit Mississippi and those people that lost their lives there. And the news cycle moves on. I'm always kind of been a positive person. And I think now if we can get the news coverage to be about positivity, about our rebuild, about what we're doing, how we can show people that we've been resilient and, Loyola, thinking outside the box and bucking the system, if you will, to make things open up again and try to create some sort of normalcy for people that have been coming here, the poinsettia tree, things like that. I think as long as we can keep doing positive things, we'll be able to stay in the, I've never been really a Debbie Downer. I like to try to move forward. So the more positivity we can show, I think the more we can stay in that national news cycle. And eventually, we'll come to the 1-year anniversary, if you will, and we'll have to talk about it again. But I'm about moving forward and being proactive and not trying to be reactive. But, I don't know that our job is to keep dwelling on the past. We need to show the national news how we can be the catalyst. We can be for the next storm that we know will come and hit some barrier island somewhere. This is what we did, and this is what we learned from that. We wish we would have done better, and hopefully they can take that, and the recovery will be much faster for the next people that have to go through this.
So one of the questions that I asked Joe when he was on earlier is what he thinks might be the first new piece of commercial construction on the island. And do you have any insight to something that the folks on the island will see start to rebuild in a spot that has nothing there now? Anything you can share with the folks?
No, I mean, I've met with quite a few people that have been on the island a long time that want to build back for what they had, or, maybe change it a little bit. So obviously they're concerned about the density talks and the things that we've been going through. I think the first ones that you're going to see are the ones that can build back by right with a development order and not have to go through the special exception process or the variance process. The people that can do that on whatever property they may own, I think you're going to see them come out of the ground the fastest. I mean, we're fortunate that we have Margaritaville that's going to hopefully open in the fall. That'll be the first big thing open back up. Pink Shell's been doing a great job getting back open. Diamond Head's been working their tails off to get back open. Leaky Tiki, or not Leaky Tiki, but the Tiki behind us Lighthouse has been working hard to get open. So, the pillars of the islands are really working to get it back open and try to get us back to normal as fast as we can. I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you, what was going to come out of the ground first, but I think the ones that can work within the development with a development order within the rights that they have, I think you'll see them come out the fastest.
Now, Jim wants to know if you can tell us what your understanding of the progress on the canal cleanup is. Lots of residents are asking about the timing of the debris removal and the dredging in the canals.
So I think when Director Guthrie and and Governor DeSantis were here in Fort Myers a week or two ago, I think I remember him saying that he thought it was about 84% complete in the canals. I think that's the number he used. Don't quote me on it, but I think that's what I remember hearing him saying. You see him going on those barges every single day. They're hauling it down to the Mosquito Control Board property to unload it, and then they take it off the south end of the island and get rid of it. So they're moving as fast as they can. We'll be finding stuff, I'm sure, in the canals for years.
Yeah.
As far as the dredging, we're still working on that. That normally, I know that the director did say at one of our town hall meetings that we had applied for the dredging. We haven't gotten any updates on who's going to do that or how that's going to get done, but that's a very important conversation. Austin's been out looking at, all the canals and taking depths and finding where the problems are getting in and out of the canals from the back bay. So still collecting data to figure out which ones are the worst try to get started on first.
And of course, nothing can be easy down here. You've got some emergency sand that's being spread out to start the process that leads up to the bigger beach renourishment. But in about 3 or 4 weeks, you also got, or May 20th, you have turtle season. So that's going to kind of butt heads and make it a little bit harder. But so what can you give an update on as far as the renourishing the sand is?
Well, the normal renourishment is still on schedule, but the beach berm obviously got pushed back a little bit, which is going to push us into turtle season. The consultant is already working with staff and the contractor to make sure that we're working in compliance with the turtle season and what they have to do. So these are well-educated people that understand. You've heard Mike talk.
Yeah,
he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. So they've already got they had a contingency plan in place should it go over into turtle season. So now it's just a matter of implementing that plan.
What do you want to tell the people about rebuilding Fort Myers Beach? About how do you think it's going and what you think you're going to see over the next few years?
Well, I think you're going to see some properties. I was just talking about, speaking of Zillow. I can't believe you never heard of Zillow, but I don't know why that shocks me.
There's a lot of things I haven't heard of, Dan. I don't get out a lot.
I mean, you just finally caught up to Jim with a 4K camera, so I guess I shouldn't be shocked. But I think we were talking about Zillow, and before the storm, I remember seeing on Zillow there's a few red dots here or there, and now you go to Zillow. I went there this morning. There's a lot of red dots. So I think you're going to see a lot of properties changing hands potentially. There's a lot of people. I think the average age on the island was 65 before the storm. There's some people that don't want to wait to go through the rebuild process, and they're moving on, and it's sad and it's unfortunate, but it's going to create an opportunity for new people to come in and be part of the community. And I think that's what you're going to see. We're definitely going to see some changes to the building. I think people have understood that. We might see some buildings that are taller and they may look a little different on the outside, but as long as we can keep that culture inside the building, I keep saying it, is the people that are inside the building. One of the things that I really loved about this island when I first came here is it reminded me of a small town in Minnesota. It's just, you could sit down at a place like La Ola and you didn't know if you were sitting next to a millionaire, a farmer, or a guy that worked at a farm. Nobody wore their wealth on their sleeves. They were just here to have a good time. But when times got tough, everyone around that table, no matter who they were, would get together and help. Whether it's the women's club, community foundation, whoever needed help, they would gather together and they would make that happen. And that's the culture of Fort Myers Beach, and that's what makes us unique. And despite what the buildings may or may not look like, as long as we can keep that vibe and keep that, and I think people understand nationally, more people I talk to, they understand that this has always been a fun, eclectic, funky island, and people band together when it's time, even if you don't disagree. Even if you disagree, sometimes you put that aside, especially in times like this, and you work together, help your neighbor, and you get it in, and then you get to sit around and listen to some music and have a cold beer or something. And I think that's, as long as we can keep that mentality, to me, what color the building is, or the fact it's got 5 windows instead of 6.
Yeah. I won't hold you to this. Of course, it's just a crapshoot answer, but if you were to take a guess about how many people that were living on the island before the storm will actually be living on the island after the storm.
Yeah,
that same group of people.
Do
you hear a lot of people that are moving on?
I mean, I've heard more people say they're staying than leaving, which is very encouraging. We obviously lost a few people in the storm that are never going to be able to come back, and it's just going to depend. It's going to be very expensive to be here. With insurance, going back to insurance, and I really don't know. A lot of people that have been here for 30, 40. I've been here for decades, and they retired down here and bought a nice little cottage, and now the cottage is gone, and some people see an opportunity that they can make more money than they probably ever made in their life, and move someplace and start again. And those are the ones that you really hate to see go. But we got a lot of fighters here. There's a lot of people that I think now have gotten over that grieving and have gotten over that, feel like they lost everything. I think that they're getting their feet back under them. They're building up that strength again to say, that's all you got. We could take it. We'll keep moving forward.
There's another TV truck here. Is that for you, or is that for Lalo?
No, they're probably they're probably here to educate you on Zillow.
Oh, that's nice. Encourage them to take shots at me. It's just like being at home. So one of the first people I asked to come on this show 3-4 weeks ago, when I was starting to put it together, was Fire Chief Ron Martin, and it wasn't that long ago. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And I sent him a text and we were going back and forth. And he said, I'm going to be out of town, but I could do it remotely. And then the next day he resigned. Like he didn't say anything the day before that he was going to resign, or something happened that made him resign the next day. And back when the storm first hit, we spent a lot of time communicating because he was one of the few people at the time that wanted to get information out.
Mm-hmm.
We talk every night about what's going on. And at the time they had closed the beach down so they could search for people. They were still doing a search and rescue at the time. And he was such a great communicator with the community. And he so loves this community. He's been here for so long. And it was just great working with him. How is he doing?
I don't know. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. It certainly caught me by surprise, and everyone I've talked to caught them by surprise as well. He and I worked very closely together after the storm. I know it was very difficult for him having to work, with the town right after the storm. It was very difficult for him getting answers and just, he had a job to do. His job was search and rescue. And I think he and his team and the USAR teams that were here did a phenomenal job, all in the face of people wanting to get back on the island. They want to get back to their property, and having to tell them, we're searching for people that are missing. We're still searching with these dogs. And, I couldn't imagine what that stress would be like.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that had anything to do with why he decided to resign. I haven't had a chance to talk to him to find out, he cited personal reasons and
Sure.
I wish him the best of luck. I hated to see him go. He and I have always communicated very well. When I took over as mayor and sat in, he and I would work side by side, trying to figure out, this is what we learned from FEMA this week. And we worked really well together, and I was sad to see the news, but I hope whatever the reason is that he comes out better.
Now you guys have two, I think, great town managers right now. They're co-town managers. They're on a 6-month contract. On Monday, you have 5 finalists that are going to be considered for the next town manager job, which will be to rebuild this island. I mean, do you think the town is ready for more change, or would you prefer that Keith and Chris stayed on longer and continued? These guys are experts in stuff like this. They've been through it in communities in Florida like this. And I'm not saying that somebody new that might come before you on Monday doesn't have that experience, but does the town need more change right now?
Well, I think what's important is that they've committed, and I think Keith has said it on your show, and he's committed to helping out as long as we need his help. When the new transition comes in, he and Chris have offered to help. They're both retired guys, so the fact that they were able to come out and we were able to get 2 for the price of 1, essentially, to be able to help us. They're both very different guys. They both have very good strengths in different areas,
Mm-hmm.
and they complement each other very well. We're extremely fortunate to have that combination. I can't speak to whether they decide they want to put their resume in and try to go for the job as well, but I think they've done the town a very, very good job. They've done a very good job for the town. Like you said, their experience, they're very good at team building. I think they've got a culture that they started with direction, I think, from council, that they understand what the culture is. You see them out at events like this all the time. They like to be part of the community. I think the community likes that. They're approachable, and I think whether it's them or whether it's a new candidate, I think that's a very key thing, that they have to be approachable. They have to be community orientated. They have to be able to work hard, because there's going to be a lot of hard work. And they've got a very determined council that is pushing very hard to change the culture the way it was over the past. And I think that they understand that. I'm sure most people are probably paying attention to this. If I was going to be taking a job somewhere, I'd try to get all the information I could ahead of time.
And I think that we've been kind of spoiled since they've been around, because they are such good communicators, and we were so not used to that communication level before they came on board with you too, and Jim, and just the change in the communication. And the worst, this is obviously, there's some personal reasons for this too, because I love being able to communicate with the town so easily. The last thing the town needs is that to go back to the way it was.
Yeah, I think that'd be, I don't see that happening, for one. I mean, communication is free. It's the easiest thing to do. And people may not like your answer all the time, but as long as you're giving them an answer, that's better than no answer at all, or hiding in a closet. So as long as you do that, people they may not agree with it. They may argue back with you, but at the end of the day, they'll understand it and they'll move on.
Yeah.
Well, and if you need to change something, you can change something. But if you're not willing to talk to people, no one in the room is the smartest person in the room. I've always felt that way. So if there's a problem, the more people you can get talking about it, I think the better solution you get out of it.
For somebody who is asking who are the 5 candidates, the town posts their agenda on Wednesday on their website, and the 5 resumes of the 5 finalists will be attached to the agenda. And you can also go on Monday. They're having donuts and coffee with the 5 candidates, and you're all willing to or welcome to go to Town Hall, which is at Diamond Head, and have coffee and donuts with the 5 candidates and talk to them yourselves. It's 1 hour, 8 to 9, and then you guys will have a meeting, a regular town council meeting, and you'll rank them from there. Interview and rank them.
Well, we get our one-on-one interview with them each, and then they'll be able to come up, and then there's the public interview process. After that, we'll have a public comment segment there, which we normally don't have, just to get feedback from people that did take the time to go and talk with these candidates and offer their feedback. Because at the end of the day, we all work for the residents, so they should be able to have a say in it. So so we'll have that public comment. Then we'll rank them. The council will rank them, and the person that's ranked the best will enter into negotiations with the attorney.
So it's automatic that one of these 5 will be the next town manager. Is that automatic?
I wouldn't say it's automatic. No, I mean, we've no council member. I don't even know who the people are. I have no idea. I just know the numbers of people they said have applied.
There are like 80 applications for this job.
Yeah, there was over, and I think, we've entrusted our HR person as well as our 2 town managers to vet the process. As you said, they've got a wealth of experience. They know what they've been here long enough. They understand the culture of the town. They understand the community. I think they understand what the drive is for the council. I think that they'll pick best candidates, but nothing is guaranteed.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be that the council doesn't like any of them.
Yeah. Well, how do you rank? You give them all zeros. Is that how you rank? I mean, somebody's going to get a 5 or a 4.
I've never been through this process, so I guess we'll figure it out. But.
So let's say Keith comes back from vacation. He's on vacation this week, and he decides that he wants to be considered for the job. Now he get into the audience and he becomes one of the 6 candidates, or he gets an extra donut at 8 o'clock and everybody gets to chat with him too? I mean, what if he decides to be the 6th candidate? Is that how that works, or this is all
a good question? I guess I haven't asked that question, but obviously, I think Keith and Chris are doing a great job, and through the whole process, I think they've been asked by several people throughout the community to consider staying on and putting their application in, and I know Keith is considering it. Obviously his wife, he's got a place and a life up in the Panhandle, so he's got to work through that. And if he decides to apply, it'd certainly be welcome. If he doesn't, we're glad that we have him here to assist us in the change whenever that happens with the new town manager. I think we're in a fortunate spot to be able to have as many people that care. The good thing about Keith and Chris is that this isn't just a job for them. You could truly tell that they love being involved with building something and building back a community, and they've really gotten attached to people in the community. So we've been very fortunate.
So folks, if you're listening or watching here, Keith's email address is townmanager@fmbgov.com. I would encourage you all to send him an email asking him to stay. If you're watching, or if you're out here and you can write it, or get on your phone right now and say, I mean, you're just taking my word for it, right? Because you've only seen him maybe out at an event or at a town council meeting where he's not ego driven and he has to be the center of attention the whole time. He's there answering questions and everything. It's town manager at FM. Now he's not going to get any. You watch what happens with the,
I guess we'll find out your poll.
How much jack I have, which is 0. But I have nothing against any of the other candidates. I just think when things are running smoothly, why rock the boat?
Well, I mean, the decision's in his hands.
Yeah.
It's listed as open until filled. So
yeah,
it could be filled on as soon as Monday. It could not.
Now, how many years do you have left in your term?
2024. November 2024.
So you have to run again if you decide you're going to run again. It has to be in 2024.
Yep. Yeah, because the last election previous to this one in November, the referendum was in there, and we now align with the national.
Do you want to announce today that you're running again?
for shirts.
There's no way.
Yeah,
you're-
you know, it's true. That's true, John. Actually, Jim, Bill, and I will be the longest running council members.
Yeah.
Or sitting council members in Fort Myers Beach history.
because of the 4 years. So, John,
We don't-
please,
John,
John,
why do you got to bring up my
John, this
shortfalls,
is my
John?
show. There's no way you're not running. I mean, you're just in the middle of this. So, no comment. I almost got him to squeeze it out there. So, what keeps you up at night?
What doesn't? You know, you're living in a camper with a dog and a cat that hate each other, and they evidently, you know, as we're out trying to do the things we're trying to do during the day, that's when they get their napping. And so, you know, throughout the night, it's you know, they got a love-hate relationship. The dog is so dumb he hasn't
Dan,
figured
Dan,
out that the
Stick to the
cat's got
question, Dan. We're not
claws
talking
everywhere.
about pets. What keeps you up at night?
Well, you asked me. That's the number one thing.
The
No,
dog.
everything keeps me up at night. I probably overthink more things than I should, and I'm a fixer. I like to try to fix things and try to make things right. So if something comes up during the day that is become a problem, it keeps me up at night until I can can't fix everything, but so everything, everything keeps
We
me
got people watching already that want to know where they can make political contributions to your campaign already. So, any final piece of advice before we let you go to the people out there that are going through what they're going through?
No, just, you know, keep your head up. I know there's, you know, we all have days where we get down, where you just feel like everything is going against you. And you know, the best thing you can do is go home, hug your husband and your wife, you know, pet your dog, you know, try to find your cat and you know, get through it, you know, sit outside, you know, I never thought I would be a camper, and you know, you make the most of it. You sit out there, and when the burning ban is off, you can have we've had a fire pit. I've never, you know, had a fire pit at our house since till now.
Mhm.
So, you know, we can't do it now, but when we are able to do it, it just, you know, find what makes you happy, find what makes you relax. You know, we're fortunate enough that we still have the Gulf of Mexico. Go out and watch a sunset, you know, go up to the top of the bridge and watch the sunrise, and don't let the day define you, define your day.
Dan Allers, everybody, the mayor of Fort
All right.
Myers Beach. Thank you so much, Dan. And I think I screwed up the Kevin Guthrie thing, so I'm going to have to try and make good on that. I think I sent him the wrong link. I'm still a rookie at this. I'm still learning. Liberty Roofing and Construction is your trusted roofing company, everybody. At some point, you're going to have a house. And the last thing you want is to have a house without a roof because you'll get wet. So you're going to call Liberty Roofing and Construction. They have they say that your roof will be done within 30 days of when your permit is issued. A clean property guarantee, industry-leading workmanship. You receive a free